Go watch it. All right, we'll bring this meeting of the Finance Subcommittee to order. If the clerk would call the roll.
Chairman Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Martin. Here. 3 present.
We're here to take up a number of items that were referred to the Finance Subcommittee. And the first one on the agenda is report and update on Phase 1, Phase 2 of the combined sewer overflow. This was a response to a motion by Councilor Kennedy back in, and we received it for the meeting of May 14th. It is related to one of the loan orders, specifically the wastewater portion. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. It was referred to us by Councilor Kennedy. Any questions? All right. It is important to what we're doing this evening. On the second page, it does indicate that in September 2010, as the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility was nearing completion of its long-term control plan, Phase 1 program, the EPA issued an administrative order requiring the submittal of the long-term compliance plan, or control plan, Phase 2 report, as well as the expenditure of $40 million in the next phase of the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utilities program to reduce CSO. So we had the report, which was over 10 pages long, describing what needed to be done, and that was provided in May. And of course, not something that I'd like to consider, but we'll have no choice. Near the bottom of the same page, this funding would likely require a sewer rate increase. All right, so that was the report referred to the subcommittee by Councilor Kennedy in May. Any questions? Councilor Martin?
Let me just, I've been in these meetings back when I was mayor with folks from EPA about sewer separation project, and I think we've made considerable progress since then. But this is always their answer, right? Raise your rates, spend more money, do more work. And I think, given the progress we've made, I mean, we able to push back at this at all? I mean, because as I remember in 2006 dollars, $60, $70 million solves half the problem, but the other half takes $150 million. So, I mean, to me, there's a point of diminishing returns, and I'd like to know where you think we are with that.
Well, I think that, if I may, Mr. Chairman, where I think we are is that, and I'll have Mr. Young address the more technical aspects of everything, and he's on the front line with dealing with the EPA on this. But certainly the sense we have is the EPA is, is pleased with the progress that we've made. And because of that, they're willing and interested to work with us on addressing these issues over a period of time. They're not demanding anything be done immediately, or the whole problem be solved immediately, but they want to see continued progress. And that's leading into tonight's presentation. What we're doing is we're trying to continue that progress, that rather than taking on a confrontational approach with them that could result in more difficult measures being taken that would require large rate increases instead of the sort of planned out and managed approach that we've been using. But perhaps Mr. Young wishes to comment.
Council, let's give you a perspective of what we've accomplished. 13, 12, 11, 10 years ago, we were discharging over 1 billion gallons of CSO into the river. We spent a considerable amount of money on source separation. wet weather expansion of the treatment plant and other things to try to mitigate as much CSO as we can. We've been able to reduce so that last year we discharged 125 million gallons to the river. There's a little caveat there. It was a dry year, but still, that's a significant reduction on the investment that we've done. This year,
What was the first number? $1 billion, is it?
over $1 billion.
Okay.
This year, a little more wetter year, our number will probably be around 200 million. We're still one of the largest CSO discharges on the river. As you know, there's 5 CSO communities. 3 of them are discharging 50 million gallons or less. Unfortunately, Lowell and Manchester, New Hampshire are the biggest CSO discharges. And both of us are in the same situation where we're investing, we're making a lot of progress. The agencies are happy, but like the manager said, they want to see us continue to mitigate as much CSOs as possible.
All right, thank you.
All right, I think that completes the first item. We'll move on to the next 2 items. I believe we have a presentation from the administration. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a presentation that we've put together. It's put in its simplest terms, if you will. And we have Mr. Young and Mr. Laif here from Wastewater and Water to go into the specifics and address any questions that you might have. But I guess in summary, we have 2 loan orders before the City Council that we think are worth bringing to the Council for continued improvements to both of those operations. Certainly in the case of wastewater, a large part of that is satisfying the EPA with regards to the CSO work. It also relates to measures that will tie in with the CSO work that will address some of the flooding issues and hopefully bring some relief to the residents in the Centerville area that are experiencing increased flood insurance rates, or the requirement of getting flood insurance because of the Corps of Engineers and FEMA's calculations regarding flooding in that area. And then water is just some continued improvements to that overall operation that we'll get into. That I think I hope the council will see the value of these improvements taking place over time. So if I could just walk you through very quickly. In water, we're talking a $22.8 million loan order that will address issues of water mains here in the city, as well as a residential meter replacement program. Doing work out at the treatment plant to handle the residual handling issues that we have out there with the treatment process that we utilize, and some dam and reservoir improvements. In the case of wastewater, the $40 million that we're requesting in this loan order would go towards sewer separation projects, flood pumping, which is the issue that we still have with regards to the Corps of Engineers and getting the necessary certifications that would then address the FEMA floodplain calculations. Sludge dewatering, which is something that will go a long way towards helping us address some of the cost issues out there. Remote station upgrades so that we can continue to operate the system effectively. And then again, a cost item, the stormwater infiltration. Now, as you recall, one of the things that I just want to touch on very quickly is that with the new memorandum of agreement, or our intermunicipal agreement that we have with the area communities, they will be paying a share of these costs that in the past they didn't necessarily pay for, because they'll be they go beyond just in this case, the new intermunicipal agreements put some of the costs into all of the communities involved, including the city, where in the past it was really just the plant itself in which those costs were passed on. Both of these projects, or these sets of projects, really continue the improvements that we've made in the recent past, and I just wanted to do a quick refresher to the council and for ourselves on what we've done. The last major project out at the water utility was a $10,450,000 loan order in 2011, which made some improvements to our water mains. Also made improvements at our raw water pump station just upriver from the treatment facility. We did the solar panel project, which is helping us control some of our utility costs. Made improvements at the booster pump station, and we did commercial metering replacement, as well as some residential. What we have found with the commercial metering that took place is that that brought in additional revenue for the city because there was a substantial amount of issues with the old meters just not keeping up with the actual water that was going into the to these buildings, into these facilities. That more than paid for the, or I shouldn't say more than paid, but over time it will pay for the bond issue that that we utilized to pay for these improvements. The other issue that we have with the metering process is because the old meters become less effective over time, is you have equity issues. And I think that's something we have to consider when we get into the residential metering, is that we have people with older meters utilizing a certain amount of water, and it's not being calculated properly. So they're paying less in getting for their water than someone who has a more current, a newer water meter that has been installed more recently. This map shows you some of the issues that we're dealing with, or that we've been dealing with the improvements that we've made recently that I've already described in terms of the raw water intake, the treatment plant upgrade, the solar, the redundant water transmission main, and then the Stackpole Street pump station. In wastewater, the most recent loan order that was approved by the council was a $35 million loan order in 2008. We also used some ARRA money in 2010. I think we'll all agree that the work that we did in addressing odor control has proven successful. And Mr. Young can certainly speak to this. The number of complaints that we've had with regards to odors coming out of the Duck Island plant have decreased dramatically. In fact, we went several months, without almost a year, I believe, without a single complaint, which is a far cry from what the city had experienced prior to those improvements taking place. We also made a number of improvements in the way that the treatment plant processes that which comes into the plant, dealt with issues of high flow management, some flood protection that we did along the riverbanks, continued CSO approval, and then continuation of the capital improvement plan that the wastewater plant has put in place. So just to give you some sense of some of the flooding issues that we've had, I don't know when exactly this picture was taken. This is the large July 1st rainstorm that we had this year, that we still had some issues in some of the neighborhoods that we're now hoping to be able to address with the proposed projects. So in terms of the, yep.
Mr. Manager, we still have a plow on in July?
We still have plows that can push water around when we need them.
That's what they used it for?
That's
to
right.
Push the water, all right.
Right. It's snow that's been melted, so. In the case of what we're doing in water for the proposed projects, we have the, maybe I'll, rather than having me just walk through these, I may kick this right over to Mr. Lahiff, if you could walk through these various issues.
Sure, thank you. The redundant raw water main is a continuation of Phase 2 for our redundancy. What we did back in 2007 was, initially we had one water main that fed from the intake station up the street down into the water plant. We put another main in there, so now we have two mains coming from the raw water station into the plant, giving us redundancy. We just spent about $3 million, just over $2 million, going from the finished water main out of the plant, out to the intersection of Ferry Road. The intent now is to continue down the street we have a river crossing approximately 5,200 linear feet down the road. So we tie into that. Now that'll give us complete redundancy throughout the city. We did have an issue out there, I believe it was back in 2010, where we had a valve that was leaking out there, and we had to do a shut-in. And when we shut that in for the 6-hour repair, the water dropped, pressure dropped below half. So as a result, if we continue on with this, Now, we'll have that redundancy that really meets the basic fundamentals of an efficient water supply. So redundancy is key. It's key for a distribution system, especially one of our size, over 200 miles of pipe, and initiated in 1858. So that's the one project that is very important.
Councilor Martin has a question.
Thank you. In the flood in 2006, I think we came very close, right, to having the water system
To shut down.
shut down.
Right.
And I know there was some, heroic efforts by a lot of folks. So is what's in place now, if we had that type of flood again today, would we be better off, or would now just both systems be in danger of being overwhelmed by flood in the river?
Well, it's kind of a different area. As far as shutting down the plant, the reason why we came close to shutting down is because we have our lagoons across the street in which we pump our backwash water into. Had the river breached into the lagoons, we would have had back pressure coming into the plant. At that point, you would have had to have shut down. What we do have, though, is we have more storage capacity with the new 10th Street tank. So depending on how long you would have been down, we would have had extra storage. But the redundancy of the main, this is in case you have a break in one of the water mains that is either coming in from the raw water that has to be treated or going out to the system. Up until 2007, you had one from the raw water plant coming in, one going out. So they are low-pressure pipes coming in, they're 35 PSI gravity fed from the raw water station. So historically, we haven't had many issues with it. But had that gone down, we would not have had the ability to bring water into the plant to treat. So we would have been out of water. So the breaching issue that was a different, we also had a plan for that, Counselor. We were on the phone with the DEP. What we were going to do was actually pump from one of our filters into the back of the plant, discharge water. So it would have been minimal, but it probably would have been enough to keep the fire suppression in the systems. So,
With that now, too?
what's that?
The new...
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. This is on the residential water meter replacement?
Water meter replacement, yes. This is what we've done. We spent about $800,000. We just replaced approximately 900 commercial industrial meters, 1.5 and larger. And as a result, we have seen an increase of about $500,000, I believe, conservative numbers in revenue. But the key to that is that we have all this information now at our fingertips. What we've done historically is continue to improve the efficiency and the technology in the plant, and the meter replacement is just another part of that. When we did the touchpad system back, I believe it was 1991, that was the state-of-the-art system. They went out, they had the touchpad, the gun, they went in, they got the reading off the house. Well, since then, systems have improved. Now you have the drive-by systems, which frankly are not the state-of-the-art anymore. And you have, what we have now is the radio reads, transmitters throughout the city, which we already have set up on our large meters. So this will be, first of all, be able to hit the ground running on this, so to speak, put the contract out, go out to the homes. We're already set up with all our topography, and we have the system in place to set up the automatic reads. The manager made a very good point. You lose about 4% of accuracy on meters in 10-year increments. So there's probably, or 2%. So there's probably 4 to 5% of unaccounted for water out there, which means unaccounted for water which we report to the DEP, which also means revenue. From a customer service point, very important. Estimated reads are something that can continue to be a problem, and the reason for that is entry into homes, broken ARB boxes where they don't get accurate reads, and a lot of the issues that we deal with are due to inaccurate reads or estimated reads. So this is something that drastically will improve our customer service.
If I may, I think that it will improve our customer services. As I pointed out, if you have that 4 to 5% discrepancy, and it's unaccounted for, it is being paid by someone. It's
Right.
being paid by the people who have the more accurate meters. They're paying more, so that the other people would be paying less. So this is a way of dealing with that problem. The other issue is that I think Dan touched upon a little bit, is the leak detection capability. So when we have people out there with leaks, we can see that. If there's dramatic usage of water in a particular customer, then we'll be able to, sort of track down and contact those people, because we'll be able to see spikes as they occur and be able to determine whether in fact there's a leak in someone's house, which would be very helpful, obviously, to the residents that are there. And then lastly is, over time, this will allow us to reduce our costs for the reading of meters. And will allow us to better process bills. This could all be done really with the push of a button, that you could get the readings, download it into a billing system, send the bills out. And that, of course, will cut down on our costs long term. Third is the water treatment facility upgrades. One of the issues that we have with both water and wastewater is the residuals that come as a result of the treatment. And this is intended to help us cut down on some of those costs.
As part of our process, part of our sedimentation process in our basins, we create, through our coagulants, a residual, a sludge. And what it does, it falls to the bottom of the basin, it's pumped across the street into our holding lagoons. What it does is that it goes through a natural process of drying out. The lagoons are filled out. I believe all 3 lagoons hold approximately 20,000 pounds of wet sludge. So there is an expense to this. It can be used by Grove and other companies use it as a filler in various waste sites or landfills. But again, it's something that is regulated by the DEP and has to be removed. So the system that we're looking at is an actual underdrain system where we'll go in and we'll rehab all of our lagoons. It'll be a natural freeze-dry process where the water will be able to seep below, and you'll be talking from a pudding-type residual to almost like a coffee ground. So the hauling expense should be cut down to minimal.
And then lastly, with this project, with this loan order, we would be making improvements at the Christian Hill Reservoir. We have a dam there that has been cited by the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation Office of Dam Safety for improvements that are necessary in order to bring us into compliance with their own regulations.
Right, as required by DEP, it does, although this has been up there since the early 1900s, it is solely for aesthetic purposes. This reservoir is offline, it is not tied into the potable water system. But again, it has been deemed a dam by the Department of Conservation and Recreation, so every 2 to 3 years we have to do an inspection. There is some tree and shrub issues that we have that continue to grow, so we need to remove those so they don't impede the integrity of the wall. And with that, we're going to put some riprap and some restoration on that. We also need to put some drain alarms and systems on that. We do use it as an overflow from our intermediate reservoirs, but we do use it as an overflow. When you have intermediate reservoirs, you have to have an overflow system, and this is why they kept it in place. There is an overflow pipe that is tied into the 2 intermediates and the newer neck and tank, and that's where the overflow comes into. So we do need to keep it somewhat intact. It's just that with the age of it and the structure as it's been, again, deemed a dam, there's certain improvements that we have to continue with down there. And we're at the point now where this is what we have to do. So I think that it's very important that we take these steps and certainly put the overflow and the alarming system on it that's required.
Councilor Martin?
So you said it's just aesthetic, that it's not tied to the potable water system?
No.
Not used for fire protection either?
No,
Okay.
no.
So the reference to dam is actually the reservoir itself?
Yes, the open res up.
Because I was wondering what dam we were talking about.
Yes, I agree. Most of the time dams are, by definition, if you control the raising of the water, but I guess the Department of D&C still say it constitutes a dam.
I did have a resident question me about that reservoir, that he often sees it drain several feet and then it fills up again, and he was wondering if that was with treated water, or you just mentioned the overflow from the
Yes, it can be.
underground reservoir.
Yeah, it certainly can be treated with overflow.
So
From,
the overflow is treated water that's refilling it. Is that the
Correct.
only thing that fills that reservoir?
well, natural rain and such.
So the storm drains connect to that reservoir as well, or in the area?
There is an area that's tied into the storm drain. That's another issue that we want to do. We want to tie that into, hopefully through Mark's CSO project, so it doesn't need to be treated down the plant.
Yeah. Well, the resident was concerned that we're paying to treat water and then using it to fill up a reservoir.
I agree.
So that generally would not be done intentionally, just
No.
overflow pressure?
No, certain times, if you have a demand of a fire, or you have very, very high demand on the system, you have to raise your level of the intake station as well as the clear well. And as a result, you raise the levels of the intermediate reservoirs. So all reservoirs are designed like that. It's pretty much a norm in the business to have an overflow like that.
Councilor Marcher?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It says the loan for the water would be $22.8 million. That's all well and good, but I wish that you would have broke it down like residential water meter replacement. How much would it cost for that specific aspect? Dam improvements at the reservoir improvements, how much would that aspect cost? Put it in the order of importance, like if the Department of Conservation and Recreation says that that is for safety, you have to do it, that would be a top priority. So if you could put this in order and break it down according to price, $22.8 million, I could pull a figure out of the air and say, that's it. So I would like to be a little more specific with a breakdown here. Second question, do we have to spend all that money? Do we have to, everything you're asking for, is it of a necessity or could we just take 3 items like we have done in the past? You know, wastewater, $40 million. Do we need to do all that right away? That's my question here. So can we break things down, and what's top priority here? Thank you.
If I may, Counselor, and Mr. Lahiff can speak to the breakdown as well. This was just a summary to just give you a sense of the work that needs to be done. We can give you a breakdown of that, and certainly we can do there are some things we can do portions of. There's some that I think are more important than others. I think everything we've put before you, though, has a good argument for it, and I understand. And I think once we get into the final part of the presentation, when we talk about the financing, you'll see some of the effects of some of that. The $40 million for wastewater, and that is we just took their chart and put it into this PowerPoint. But almost everything there really needs to move forward so that we stay in compliance with the work that we need to do with the EPA. But perhaps, Mr. Lahiff, can you give a breakdown of the?
Sure, I have.
Okay.
Sure, the redundant, the first project, the approximate price is $8.7 million.
First project being
The redundant treated water main, yeah.
okay, say the figure again.
8.7.
Yep.
The residential meter is estimated at 10.2. The lagoons is 3.5 million. And the Christian Hill Reservoir would be approximately 400,000. Just to answer the question, Councilor, as far as spending all the money, I think that's a reasonable question, but I would like to mention that since we borrowed approximately $57 million on our projects, and we're approximately $2 million, we've been under budget or on time on all of them, with less than 1% change orders. So all the budgets that I've been, like better word, in charge of, have come in on time and under budget. So we don't spend all of the money. We only spend what is required for the particular project.
Okay, now, Council Lori, you have a question?
I just had two quick questions. Earlier, we talked about, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, we had bonded money for the wastewater and the water department in 2008, 2011. In the water department, how much is that loan outstanding? And I'll tell you why. And the same with wastewater. We do have an outstanding loan with that, and now we're going to take $40 million. When we roll this, are we going to roll those loans in together?
No, each one will be a separate bond that we will issue, and
my-
we'll only borrow this money as it's needed. So, for instance, if it's $22.8 million, we can't spend $22 million all at one time. We'll borrow a portion of it, short-term notes, and then we'll roll it into a long-term bond, and then some additional work will come up. We'll borrow the short-term, and then we'll roll it into the long-term.
I was just wondering at this time, would it be feasible or even possible to take what we owed in the old loans, if we owed at a higher interest rate, and roll them into?
Actually, there's already authorization on the books for the CFO, for the administration, to be able to go out and do some of that refinancing. We've done that from time to time. There are costs associated with it, so we have to make an analysis each time. But we have done that. We've called back bonds, and then we've reissued. Some bonds allow us to do that, others don't. But right now, the interest rates have crept up some, so chances are we've already borrowed at lower amounts, lower rates, if we could, with those other projects. So this would be probably at a little bit higher rate.
Okay, that's fine. I was just seeing if there was a chance to save money.
Oh, absolutely. We're all about that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
Thank you. So for the public hearing, I'm glad we get the breakdown, because that's what I was looking for as well, first and foremost. And secondly, where did this list of projects come from? I mean, is there a report that the council can get that shows, or is there a recommendation? I mean, where did this information come from? Because
This is all derived from
Go ahead.
our capital improvement plan, long-term capital improvement plan.
of the water plant?
Yes.
The water treatment plant, same thing with the wastewater plant? I know some of this is mandated by the ROD.
And some of it's our long-term.
And some of it's, so could we get that before the hearing? Could we get it in our packet before this comes forward? Because I think it'd be helpful to know a breakout of each of the projects. And I guess my other question was, so prior to 2011, I know that we did other projects, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can we get, how many projects have we done in the last, I don't know, say 10 years? Because I know before that, there were not a lot of projects done, or capital improvements, but have we done 3 or 4 just at the water plant in the last, I don't know, 10 years?
Since 1998 to 2011, we've done 5 projects.
5?
$57 million, I believe is the number.
So 57 million, 5 projects since, I'm sorry.
It's 4 construction projects, but I would call it 4 projects. 1998, 2003, 2007, 2011.
Okay. Totaling 405 totaling 57 million?
7 million.
Okay. And how many times have the rates gone up with those projects or with the?
I think during my time here, we've only gone up once on water.
Once with you, I believe it's twice.
Twice.
Yeah. Prior
Over
to-
that, from 98 on.
Right, prior to your
So since
administration.
98, the water rates have gone up twice?
What I can
and-
remember is twice, yes.
And how much was the increase? Well, can we get that information for
I
the,
think it was 22 cents, a couple of increments, or give or take about 22 cents.
per,
Per
per 100 CF?
22 cents per what?
Per increase. Each increase, I think once it was 22 cents, 2007, the last one was
Per
22.
cubic meter of water? Per
Oh,
100
I'm
feet?
sorry.
So 750 gallons,
Sorry,
and we went up 22 cents per cubic meter?
Per 100.
100,
per 100 cubic feet, Counselor.
okay,
It's $2.07 now,
okay.
first 100 cubic feet.
Okay.
This could probably be answered under financing, but for the water portion, is there a perceived rate increase to fund this, or can it be done in the existing finances?
It actually can be done with existing. We don't see a need for rate increase on this till 2025.
Okay. Thank you.
And conceivably with the, if we can reduce some of the costs associated with the residuals and increase some of the, reduce some of the costs with the meter reading, that pushes that even further out.
Councilor Elliott?
I knew I had another question outside of this. So on the redundancy, can you tell me what happened? I think it was about a year ago where I know we had spent money to do some redundancy over the Merrimack River to the Belvedere, and I thought parts of Centerville, and then there was a problem.
Yeah, Council, we did some water main work over in both sections of the city. The redundancy is the redundancy that we needed for the raw water intake feed and also for the finished water main. Those are your two major redundancy issues. So in other words, if you didn't have the backup of being able to bring in raw water or to put out finished water, you wouldn't have your redundancy, either one. I think that...
So I don't mean to interrupt you, I just want to keep my thoughts straight. So the project that we did in 11, was that the one that created redundancy for Belvedere?
That was, well,
seven?
we did a lot of water main over in Wellington, over in Belvedere Streets as well, and it did improve the redundancy and the pressures over there. We've done approximately 8.5 miles of water main replacement throughout the city, which helps with...
For redundancy or just
Well,
replacement?
it helps it for actually for a fire protection and increase in pressure.
Right.
The redundancy is redundancy is the backup.
Is
So
that the line that went across the Merrimack River? Because I specifically remember a presentation saying if
yes,
this one water main breaks,
exactly.
half or Centerville, a good part of Centerville and all of Belvedere and South Lowell lose water.
Right.
So we put redundancy in, and was there,
What we are going to do is we just got two new water mains with the new University Ave Bridge, which is great help. But this is going to go in and tie down beyond into the river crossing and also beyond it, so we'll have redundancy throughout the city.
I mean, I think Councilor Elliott, the question Councilor Elliott has is the water main work that we did do a line over by the Hunts Falls
Falls
Bridge.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We
Right.
did water main work over there as well.
and what was that project part of, 07, 11?
I believe that was 07
Okay.
time.
I think
That's just quickly.
there was another water line, another redundancy though that we made farther down, or farther up, river, that, river crossing,
Yes.
correct?
Right. Yeah, we had the two of them that were done. And we also did, we're in the process right now of repairing a subaqueous water main that we have under the river that's also being replaced.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Martin?
So there was an incident in Belvedere, I think, around Stackpole Street, where
Yes.
water was shut down for 10 hours, maybe. So what happened there, and is any of that preventable by any of this?
Yes, sir. Well, we did those repairs over, that was the Stackpole Street station. And we did that repair on the intersection. So now we have the new water main going up that area. So hopefully, we run into that again, there won't be an issue with that. We're also going to be rehabbing that Stackpole Street station. That's part of this 10.5 million.
All right, but there's not, I get the redundancy in and out of the main plant, but there's not two water mains everywhere, right? If you have breaks,
Good point.
people are going to be out of service somewhere.
Right.
Is that right?
Right, but this will improve, what this will do is this will improve the ability for us to continue to flow throughout the city. You might lose pressures, but you won't be out of water.
And it'll reduce, if they're newer mains, reduce the chances that they break.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I think if I may, the system is looped.
Yes.
So if
Yes, it is,
you
yes.
lose, if you're not looped, then if there's a break, everyone is lost.
Right.
But with the loop system, that we will be able to shut down the section and reverse the flow so it goes the other way to provide water all the time.
Right.
Which is important for people's convenience, but it's crucial for fire safety.
Well, and can be crucial for public health after a certain number of hours, too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Right.
okay.
Counselor Elliott?
So there will be redundancy. My original question was what Council Martin said. Just a short time back, Belvedere was without water for quite some time. And my thought or my understanding was that by virtue of this redundancy, that nobody would lose water. So are you saying it was the pump station, or was it actual part of the piping system?
When people lost water, it was a combination of both. It was the pump station, it was the main coming out of the pump station. It's also the main tied into the river crossing as well, the subaqueous 24-inch main, which is...
So if we just put that in, or the contractor put it in, why was there no redundancy? Why was there not constant water?
No, we're in the process of repairing it now. The 24-inch main, that's what we're doing now.
Okay. We didn't do that the first time.
No.
What did we do
We
the first
repaired
time?
the valves out in the street, the valve that had blown off, the gate valve that had blown off.
Okay, thank you.
Although, just to be clear, I think redundancy is important for large areas of the city, but on a local level, if a street may be out of water because of water main break, so there might be a few houses, we're not guaranteeing that everyone will continue to have water during a water main break, correct?
Right. No, obviously, if you have a main break on a street where you have to shut in both gates, you're out of water regardless.
But we're limiting it now to smaller areas.
Right. What we're doing is we're minimizing the effect of that happening.
Okay, thank you. Council Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Mr. Moses. I was just looking at the water outstandings, 32 million, and we're going to be borrowing 20. What's the payback now? I know we're not going to probably raise rates for at least 12 more years, but what would be the payback for the 52 million approximately?
Well, we're borrowing everything pretty much on a 20-year cycle, which means there's a good portion of that debt that gets paid off every year. This new loan order, $22.8 million, that means we'll be paying off principal on that at a little over $1 million a year. To give you an indication, the budget this year, let me get the debt service. I believe the water department is paying of that 32 million, something like $3 million off. So that debt rotates. We won't, first of all, we won't issue all 22 million immediately. It'll take a couple of years for the projects to go. We only borrow as we need it, at which time we will have paid off several $1 million.
So basically, look at these in 20-year cycles, too.
Right,
Okay.
right.
With the investment of $21 million, how much more would you think you may need over the next 7 to 10 years? Or will this catch us up?
This absolutely continues to follow suit in the improvements of the efficiency and the improvements of the distribution system. It is an old system, Counselor. It's 1858. You have, after this, I would think that majority of your aspects, high priority aspects, will be covered. But continuous work on your distribution system and pumping stations and the cleaning and lining of mains is something that's really an ongoing process.
Okay. And now the sewer, we owe about $96 million. We're looking over the next 20 years, next 10 years, another $40 million, and the payback would be similar, so much a year.
Right.
And with these investments, how much more are we looking at over the 7 or 10 years? I know the EPA for wastewater.
Could we, just to keep things moving, Counselor, could we complete the water portion? Then we have wastewater, and then the financing is going to be done at the
Okay,
end.
I'm all set with the water then.
Okay, not to cut you off, I'm sorry about that.
Nope, that's fine.
You can ask
I
the
just figured
question.
because I had the figures in front of me. That's good.
Any other questions about the water treatment part? If we could wrap up that, if there's anything else you need to share with us, then we'll go on to wastewater.
Not particularly, I think.
You're all set? Okay.
I
Mr.
think,
Manager?
yeah, I think that we'll get into some of these rate issues too towards the tail end when we talk about the financing, so.
Okay.
Why don't we move on, and I know nobody can read this. I know I can't, but everyone has it in front of them, and Mr. Young can walk you through each item, beginning with the CIP Phase 1C, the sludge dewatering, the system upgrades, and the electrical mechanical. If you could walk everyone through the issues that we're dealing with.
I'd like to take this a little bit out of order.
Do you have your microphone on?
Since you can't read it anyways, I'll take them a little bit out of order, and because since we're dealing with the CSO topics first. Obviously, main portion of the work for that $40 million is going to be source separation. And as councilors know, we have done considerable source separation in the city over the past 5 years. We've got some very successful projects on the Lincoln, Chelmsford Street, Gorham Street area, where we have citizens who no longer have storage backing up in their basement, no longer have a wastewater in the street in front of their home or in front of their business. When we determined these areas at that time, obviously our list was extensive. We only had a certain amount of dollars to do a certain amount of work, so we had to prioritize. Those areas at that time were the priority areas. Doesn't mean the areas that we want to do now aren't any less important, but we simply didn't have the money to go around. So now we have people in the Highland section, now we have people in the Belvedere section who, at that time, thought they were going to have their source separation in their area to address their backup issues. Now is their turn. So we plan on doing some substantial source separation in these areas of the city where we still have street flooding and backups.
Councilor Elliott?
I don't want to interrupt you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but could we get for the hearing exactly what was done? It was a $65 million loan order, correct? For phase 1 of the CSO project?
In total is around 77 million.
77. So that 77 included the Pawtucketville as well, that project that wasn't required
That was the
under the
Sixth and Henry
rod.
project. If you remember, Councilor, we had came to a $40 million loan order, and the council upped it to $50 million and approved $50 million to do that area.
Okay, right, which still accounted for, it was still CSO separation.
Yes.
Right. So we're up to 77 million for just CSO. So can we get a breakout of what was done for that amount of money, and then what is left over, I guess, from the original agreement, if you will? Because I remember there was a little bit of latitude with, at that meeting with EPA, that X amount of dollars is going to, bring us to 65%.
Well, I think the latitude that EPA gave us was that they weren't going to manage our project and determine where we were going to do the source separation. They were going to allow us to determine that.
Right.
And we made a conscious effort to deal with the areas of the city where it's going to benefit the citizens.
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to see what we did. Because I know there was I remember there being a very large project. Was it a storage capacity over on Warren Street, which would only increase our reduction or reducing our, the CSO by X amount of million, which wasn't, it was a lot of money, but the best bang for the buck wasn't going to be that project.
And we're still looking at doing that as part of the source separation work, that we're going to enhance storage along Reed Street. We have a section of pipe from the West Street CSO station to the Reed Street CSO station, less than a mile. But we have about 1 million gallons of capacity of storage that we can't take advantage of because of a drop in the elevation of the pipe.
Okay.
So this loan order will be to address that. We're still looking at trying to get what we call the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that we can get for reasonable dollars that could really give us a big reduction, and that's one of the projects.
Okay. All right. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do think it'd be helpful to have, and I would like to know what the first phase is and what we did and complete for that money, and then we're going forward.
I think everybody would like to have that. It's been a while since this work has been done and completed,
Okay.
so.
Thank you.
If you just continue with the presentation.
In part of this, in addition to sewer separation, we'll be continuing the sewer rehabilitation program. And as you know, most of the sewers in Lowell are over 100 years old, need to be constantly rehabilitated. So we want to continue that effort. We have been reducing the amount of flow that comes to the wastewater treatment plant that takes up capacity in our lines, whether it's wet weather or dry weather, so that helps us reduce CSOs during wet weather. We're going to be doing some stormwater infiltration projects, termed green projects. This is something that's in EPA and DEP's eye, something they would like us to pursue. We're looking at a couple of stormwater projects in relation to either North Common, South Common, and potentially Roberto Clemente Park. We'll be doing some upgrades to our remote stations. We need to enhance their ability to control the gate so that when we have better control of CSO discharges. We need to make them more safe in regards to HVAC. And some of these stations, we still have to send people out to actually get data from the pumps. We don't have on the SCADA system where we can get this information right at the treatment plant. So we're still lagging behind on getting some of these stations updated into the 21st century. We will be working on developing the Phase 2 CSO plan. We're currently doing that. This plan has a hard deadline. This has to be given to EPA by December 31st of this year. This will outline how the city is going to eliminate all CSOs. We're in the midst of doing that. When we develop our strategy, we will be meeting with the manager to get his concurrence on how we want the city to proceed. This is a hard deadline. We cannot miss this. The other improvements that we're looking at the treatment plant, finishing some upgrades to the mechanical and electrical systems at the treatment plant. The last upgrade, we were able to upgrade roughly about 90% of our electrical infrastructure because some of it is seriously out of code. It's original equipment from the 1980s. We need to finish the rest of that upgrade at the treatment plant. And I think one of the most beneficial things, certainly exciting for me, be able to give the manager some good news, is the sludge dewatering. We want to get some permanent centrifuges so that we can reduce the cost of hauling our sludge residuals from the treatment plant. Centrifuges are state-of-the-art equipment that will dry the sludge drier than our present equipment can do. What's good about it is that we actually are renting a unit right now. We have put the unit in. It's 2 months since we've been operating it, and we've seen a savings already in how much we are removing sludge from the treatment plant and how much drier it is.
Councilor Martin.
So this plan that's due the end of the year, is that a plan to reduce 100% of the CSOs?
Yes,
Just the plan?
just the plan.
All right.
You had alluded to earlier, Counselor, when we, quote, push back to EPA, this may not necessarily be the time that we push back, but this is the time where we have a serious engagement of how the city is going to plan this out for the next 10, 15, and 20 years.
Okay. And then the infiltration in the parks, is that stormwater that's making its way to the sewer system?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I left out one important project that we're looking at doing, and that's the flood pumping. And this will have a substantial benefit to all those residents that are now paying that flood insurance. And what the flood pumping is doing, is I'm sure you've heard this before, that flood pumping station that Army Corps had built and then turned over to the city in the middle of the VFW highway needs to be replaced. What we're proposing is that we build the flood pumping station at the Reed Street CSO site. This flood pumping station will serve dual purposes. It'll be the flood pumping station that will satisfy the U.S. Army Corps' concerns and FEMA's concerns and allow the city to recertify the levy so the people behind it are now paying that insurance can start paying it. And it'll be the CSO pump station when we have to do further phases of CSO work and we put a wet weather treatment satellite facility at that site. EPA has agreed to this, much to my surprise. I didn't think that they would really allow us to do this, but they're agreeing to allow this and have us be eligible for SRF funding for that station to do both purposes.
I actually had a question about that. You had a note under here that it was originally Phase 1B, now you're moving it up to 1A.
Yes.
And now it's $11 million for this work now. Original estimate was $6 million. Is that just rolled into additional work being done for the 11?
Yes, that original estimate was to upgrade the existing station on the boulevard, on the VFW highway. That's not an option for us. We would be rehabbing that station, building a new one, and then within 5 years or 6 years, building another one at the Reed Street site for the wet weather treatment facility. It would be money wasted, and it's not a path the city should pursue.
Yeah, but are you building a storage pipe, or is the one there already between West Street and Reed Street?
No, that's already there. It's already an interceptor there that presently we cannot take advantage of the storage capacity of that line. So part of the upgrade is for the pump station, and concurrently, at the same time of construction, would be gates that would give us the ability to store wastewater in that pipe during wet weather, rather than discharging it into the river.
And how many gallons in that section?
About 1 million.
1 million gallons? All right, thank you. All right, you, Councilor Hill?
Just going back to the sludge, you had to haul a lot of it last year, right, out?
Yes.
How come? We couldn't handle it? What was the issue there? I thought...
It's normal operation, and the equipment that we have, Counselor, to dewater the sludge is old, so it doesn't dewater it. It doesn't dewater it well. So you're hauling more water than you are actually waste.
So didn't they last loan order for capital improvements to the plant? That wasn't one of the projects?
It was, but unfortunately, the cost was too prohibitive, and we didn't have enough money to do that project.
Okay. So we're now renting equipment to dewater the
Yes.
sludge? Because we're still having to haul
Still
out?
have to haul, but we're not hauling as much. Just to give you an example,
How much were we hauling?
how much?
How much were we hauling, or do we haul?
We were hauling roughly 60 to 70 loads a month. And right now, what we're hauling right down to about 50 loads a month. So that's a substantial savings in amount, and sludge is also drier, so it's not as heavy. So we're saving on that.
Okay. Where do we haul it to?
We have a 2.5-year contract with Casella Organics, and they are hauling the majority of it to their compost facility in Hawkridge, Maine. Some of it goes to a landfill in New Hampshire, and some goes to a landfill in Vermont. But the majority is being turned into beneficially used compost.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Just completing the wastewater, anything else? Presentation?
That's it. That was the last of it.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
If I could just, Mr. Chairman, if I could just put some summary statements together with the wastewater, I think that the work, as I said earlier, the work that we've been doing on the CSO has been recognized by the EPA as being really cooperative, and that's what's allowing us to be able to plan the work out in a way that we can handle it in the most effectively and the most least expensive way possible for the ratepayers. I also think that the way it's been done, and I think that the council certainly has been aware of this through the years, going back to the beginning, is that we're getting a bang for the buck. We're not just dealing with the CSO issue; we're also dealing with flooding issues in the neighborhoods, and that's certainly been well received by the residents. Somewhat, I'll use the same term again, flooding. Obviously, this proposed project has important benefits for the Centerville residents that we've already talked about several times in terms of their flood issues with the Corps of Engineers and the FEMA maps. The strategy that we've pursued that Mr. Young described of being able to combine, rather than just spend $6 million on a pump station that really was never used when it was built back in the early 40s. It's never really been utilized. If we're going to spend that kind of money, let's spend it on something that will have a real benefit to us, and certainly that's what we've attempted to do. And then the last point I would make is related to the CIP Phase 1C, some of those issues that you see there. I think we've seen the benefit of investing in this plant. This plant is 30-plus years old. It really didn't receive investment for a number of years. It's really only been in the last several years that we've put the money into this. That, as we all know, these facilities over time develop problems, and it's obviously crucial that we be able to maintain this facility. And to Mr. Young and his staff's credit, the investments we've made have been very positive in just keeping the plant operating and operating in its most effective way. But beyond that, it also has really become a model of how to operate a facility of this sort. They get the ISO certification on a regular basis. We had the EPA out here just a couple of weeks ago that was looking at the improvements that were made, particularly as it relates to some of the alternative energy and energy savings. But beyond that, just the improvements that have been made to make it a better run facility, it really has become a model in the eyes of the EPA. So, if I could move on to the financing aspect of this, it's important, I think, sort of following up on my last comments, it's important that, from our perspective, that we continue to make these investments. These are investments in the infrastructure of the city. Certainly, we've done that through our capital improvement program that has made improvements in our schools and our municipal buildings, our roads, our sidewalks. We're putting more money into our parks. These types of investments are maintaining the infrastructure in a way that really protects it for current residents and future residents of the city. The same applies here to water and wastewater. But I think it's important to note, and I've given you a sheet here on our peer communities or similar communities, that in spite of the fact that we've been investing so much in our facilities and our infrastructure, and we do have, as Mr. Young pointed out, we have actually I think both Mr. Young and Mr. Leif have pointed out, we have a very old water and wastewater system here in the city. And as we all know, when systems like this are up in age, they require quite a bit of attention and resources. We have been putting money in and providing the city with the redundancy and the effectiveness to make sure these facilities continue to operate. But we still have some of the lowest rates around. You can see that of the communities we've listed out here, Newton, Quincy, Somerville, Cambridge, Boston, Lynn, Worcester, Fall River, Brockton, New Bedford, Lawrence, Springfield, we are lower than all of those in both water and sewer, and obviously in combined rates. And for the average water user here in the city, it's $248 a year, compared to Newton, which is $719, or our next one up, Springfield, which is $318. So we're still well below those communities in terms of our water rates. Excuse me, I just used that last one. It gives us the combined rates. I think the next one up from us in water is actually Fall River at $290. So we're still well below that. In the sewer rates, where the average user is $358 per year, and you can see is Newton, once again, is $1,060. And the next one up from us in sewer is, in fact, Lawrence at $402. In combined rates, we're at $606, with Newton, once again, obviously being the largest in terms of combined rates at just under $1,800, and Springfield at $755. The projects we've put forward to you, as I said, the water does not need a rate increase to do these. We will not need a water rate increase until 2025, and if we see the savings we're anticipating with the meters and the residual costs, the cost for residuals, that could potentially be pushed out a little bit farther. Wastewater, as you know, the current projects that we have in place right now will require a 27% increase from 2015 to 2020. And these proposed projects would require an additional 13% over that period of time. It would still keep us at very low rate levels compared to our peer communities, assuming they all stay where they are. They all have infrastructure needs as well. We're not proposing this just because we are the lowest, but I think a comparison shows that we have to invest in our infrastructure, we have to put this money into these facilities, but it's not being done in a way that is exorbitant when we compare ourselves to other communities. Now, one thing that we don't need a rate increase right now. We actually are proposing that we go a year, and we'll be able to come back to the council with some type of firmer numbers on what we will need for rate increases, but these are worst-case scenarios that we're talking about. One thing that we have kicked around is an idea, because water won't need a rate increase for some period of time, and wastewater will see a spike, a large spike. We think that we could use a holistic approach, that we can reduce water rates for a period of time, not forever, but we can reduce those while increasing the wastewater rates. And the net effect is that we would limit the annual combined bill increases to $39 or less over this period. Over that time, we will see an increase of about $165, which would still keep us very low would still keep us below our peer communities. So we think that the financing can be put in place to do this. My closing comments, or my slide here that I had for closing comments, was basically that they need investment to maintain efficiency and make sure that these important services continue. We do have the ongoing consent agreement with the EPA that we need to be aware of. And it is necessary we want to keep both facilities operating at their peak performance while investing in their future success. So I think I basically said all of that in my closing comments. So that concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to get that information that Councilor Elliott requested for the public hearing. We anticipate requesting the public hearing probably be put on for October 1st, I think it is, rather than September 24th. We'll move it into the first meeting in October, if that meets needs of the water and wastewater. That concludes our report.
Councilor Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the administration, and I want to thank the department heads for coming here tonight. Looking at possibly a 40% increase. It's about $140 over the next 7 years, possibly. And what really stands out, just a few things. Some of the top cities you use, Boston, Cambridge, they fall under the Metro water system out of the Quabbin.
the MWRA.
and they're pretty high anyway. But even with the possible increases, and I'm sure we're going to have an increase, I think the $358 in Lowell has been artificially kept down because of lack of resources. Really, I think, over the years to invest in the infrastructure in the city, and now we're in pretty good shape, we can start moving forward. But I think when you look at these other towns that you're trying to compare to, in 7 years from now, there's no way Lawrence is going to stay at 402, Springfield 430. These are old cities facing the same challenges as Lowell. And before I finish, I think you're right, there's a possibility of savings. I've been through this council now on 2 budget hearings, and I think both times the Water Department and wastewater has come in really with lower budgets due to improvements, chemicals, or whatever. So both departments are really working hard to keep the rates down. I'm hoping we could keep it less than 40, but, you know, and I know a lot of this is mandated, but I think these are really low rates right across the board for a lot of cities, including Lowell, and I could be wrong, because we just didn't have the funds to invest in the infrastructure over the years. So the work begins. Thank you very much, and good luck with the project.
Council Martin?
So I don't think it's appropriate for the Finance Subcommittee to take any formal action in advance of a public hearing, but I think I would at least, I'd make a motion that we proceed to public hearing.
This is, second by Councilor Elliott. This is not an endorsement of proceeding or not proceeding. This is just continue the process.
Correct.
And with the information presented to us and at the public hearing, then the council make a determination at that time. So I have a motion to proceed to public hearing by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Roll call.
Yes. Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
3 yeas.
Any other questions? Motion to adjourn by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Appreciate your participation.
See ya.